All right. We got to break away from the Eagles guy. That was really pretty. But it is time for Savannah Lexicon. So for the next hour, I will invite you to be listening in as my guest today is Daniel Carey, President CEO of Historic Savannah Foundation. But I do want you to know that you're listening to WRUULP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM. WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. And before I bring in Daniel, I should say, and give you guys the world-famous general disclaimer. The viewpoints expressed in the following program are not necessarily those of WRUU, its license holder, or its staff. So, there you go. You now have the general disclaimer. And how are you, Daniel?
I'm doing well. Nice to be back on the Power Hour.
Is that the new name?
That's I like that, yeah.
The Power Hour. I'll go with that. I'll tell you what, some of the folks that I have on the show are pretty powerful folk of one sort or another, be they political, cultural, or social service folks. And for first-time listeners out there, that's kind of what Savannah Lexicon is about. It's a show that I bring in people from the political sphere and social services and cultural organizations and the like, and we talk about issues of importance, issues that shape Savannah. And also we talk a little bit about opportunities to experience things in and around the beautiful city here that might bring an added measure of grace and joy to your life. So that's what it's about. If you are a first-time listener, we certainly appreciate you tuning in this morning. We're here every Tuesday and Thursday for Savannah Lexicon from 8 in the morning till 9 in the morning. So, as Daniel said, the Power Hour. Okay. All right. Well, gosh, there's lots to talk about, as always, in Savannah, Daniel. And I'm not going to try and go into some lengthy introduction. I know good and well anybody who's listening to the show knows about Historic Savannah Foundation and kind of what that's all about, surely. I will just throw out there that some things that people might not necessarily be aware of. You guys also occasionally do workshops. You've got the plaque program, preservation awards, those kinds of things. So just a few of the other things that you do with the organization that perhaps people are not aware of. And the web address, the web page is what? myhsf.org. Okay, good. MyHSF, Historic Savannah Foundation, hsf.org. Okay, all right. Well, you're quoted in the paper today, so maybe that's one place we can get started out. I know we're going to talk about various issues that are a little different, but all kind of along the same lines, as well as about the historic preservation and integrity of downtown. But the whole landmark historic district, really, which is not just downtown per se. But apparently the Historic Review Board, and you're a part of that?
No, I'm just an advocate.
Okay, but you're an advocate, obviously, for historic preservation and design elements in and around the city. Well, you ought to be on there. You're certainly qualified. At any rate, the review board did approve a couple of different hotels, both of which have been somewhat controversial. I think both of them had been sent back at one point. Is that correct? I think.
Well, yes. Hotels, as a rule, are so large and complex that it takes a few go-rounds through the HDBR to get them through it. And that's not to be unexpected. I mean, that's just kind of something that large and something of that magnitude requires that much time and effort.
And particularly in a city like this, no doubt. But anyway, that's very typical. Nothing new there, as you say. All right. So one of them, let's see, is the West Elm Hotel project, 607 Drayton Street. This is the one that the original design, I think, was for an extra story, a fifth story, which was outside of the bounds, so to speak, is generally done. Is that correct?
Yes, it is in a 4-story height zone,
right.
And they were seeking an additional story, and we held the line on that, and actually it had to go through the Zoning Board of Appeals, which agreed with the 4-story rule, as it were, and held to that. And then to the owner and developer's credit, they chose not to appeal that decision, but work within the 4 stories, and I think that's really important.
I think so too, but they were at one point going to challenge it, and then they kind of decided to back down and went along with it. So that's a good thing.
I think they were contemplating it, yes, but I think we had a good argument. So I think we were confident either way, whatever venue we were going to wind up in. I think we were confident it was going to remain 4 stories.
But now there still seems to be a little bit of concern or whatnot about the appearance of a 5th floor. Is that
always?
So they did away with the actual 5th floor, but now we're concerned about the appearance of a 5th floor.
Well,
is that
yeah, and this is where the guidelines come in, and to some it may be esoteric, but to others it's important. So how things read, how they appear, is important, and it's it's a challenge because you've got systems and services and rooms to accommodate, and there's a lot of stuff, frankly, that goes on that top floor, and so how that appears, is challenging, but as a rule, the top floor should not be taller than the first floor if you're just following sort of basic architectural principles. And this one, I think, was approaching that and just started to look a little out of balance and a little top heavy. And so these are some fine tunings that have to occur, and I think they will. And I think we had a good dialogue yesterday.
Oh, okay. So you just were speaking with them yesterday. Okay. All right. Well, that's good. Now that's the one that I see all the time. I mean, that's on my one of my routes as I walk around downtown. I kind of cut over there to Parker's sometimes and go right by that particular building, of course. So it's getting there. I'm just wondering. I don't know. Do you happen to know off the top of your head when a supposed completion on
for
that
the Perry Street hotels?
Yeah,
different hotels. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
the Drayton Street's one.
Well, 607 Drayton is across from Forsyth Park. That's on the lower part of Drayton. That's the one at issue. And then the ones you're referring to next to Parker's are known as the Perry Street hotels, and they are well underway. Design is completed and construction's underway. Right. But I don't know what the completion date is on those. But they appear to be coming together well.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, all right. What threw me is this West Elm, because that hotel over here is part of the.
Yes, that's the retail outlet.
The retail
that
outlet
you're thinking of,
and I was thinking that the hotel right next to it was the hotel that they were doing, but that's not the case.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
All right. Wow. All right. See, that just shows you about making assumptions, right? And the old saying about that.
I think what it goes to is the fact there are a lot of hotels.
There are. That's true in and of itself. Is just these things they're popping up all over the place. Okay, and the other one is the one on East River Street, 620 East River Street, and that has been approved, but there's still some kind of concern about that one too, I guess, in a sense. Talk about a little bit about that, if you would.
Well, that's a whopper.
That's a big boy.
And it was approved with conditions. There were probably a half dozen conditions that need to be resolved, and will take a significant amount of work to do that.
Yeah.
And primarily, it has to do again with the height and the massing and the setback, sort of the big concepts. But nonetheless, I think a much improved design over what we saw originally, and seems to be coming together. It's just, I think, for a lot of people who are used to seeing nothing down there except a surface parking lot, and kind of an open area, the large building that is going to be there is going to surprise a lot of people.
Yeah, I can see, and there are architectural renderings in the newspaper today of both of these buildings that we're talking about, and it is a big, rather blocky building that comes, looking at the architectural rendering does come like, right out to the sidewalk kind of thing, and not much sort of open area there at all. So I can understand some concern there for sure. That's a Hilton project.
Yeah, I think what we, and I know this is subjective, and a lot of people have varying degrees of interest in this, but the feel of that end of River Street is going to change.
Yes,
if it hasn't already. And and what we were what we've been concerned about and remain concerned about is creating some sort of almost like a canyon feel that we want to avoid, so that pedestrians and residents and visitors that walk up and down there don't feel overwhelmed by
concrete canyon
by the
idea.
height
Right,
and the
right,
massing of the
right.
buildings around them, and
Yeah.
that's tricky. We understand the nature of development, and we understand the cost and risk and so on, but we do have a one-of-a-kind resource, and it's our primary calling card, so we have to be careful, and we have to jealously guard it.
Absolutely, and that's a big part of what you and HSF do, of course, and I hope everybody appreciates that, because we do need, indeed, to guard that whole thing. Now, I'm going to give my unsolicited opinion here. I am not a professional architect, a professional urban planner, or anything else, but just aesthetically speaking, I'm not knocked out by this 620 East River building. I have to say, regardless of the issues kind of that we're talking about, I mean, it just looks gray and dull, and, it's serviceable, I'm sure, and maybe it will look better. This is just an architectural rendering I'm working off of here. Maybe it'll look better in person, so to speak, but I don't know. Doesn't do a lot for me.
But, well, there are many challenges, and there are many chefs in the kitchen, so to speak.
Oh yeah,
because the Historic District Board of Review is working within the ordinance, and it's working within the Secretary of the Interior standards.
Yeah,
and,
no, I don't mean that as a complaint against the board or anything like that. I mean, the building has to meet certain standards, and that's the main thing. But just my own opinion, aesthetically speaking. And I don't know. Some people may find it absolutely gorgeous.
Right.
I don't know.
Well,
so
I'm not defending it, but but they're not a design board.
Yeah. Right. Right.
And that's something to think about. Not necessarily an additional layer, but is there a design component that could be entered into, or are there design issues in other parts of the city? Because again, as you rightly pointed out at the beginning, the landmark district, yes, creme de la creme, but there are 15 other historic districts throughout Savannah and Chatham County, and they're not to be overlooked.
No, absolutely not. But there are design elements and restrictions regarding homes, right?
Well, primarily, I guess there are in a lowercase d design, but the ordinance and the Secretary standards pretty much cover everything, and there are always going to be subjective elements
Sure.
and nuances that touch on design,
Sure,
to be sure.
sure.
But they have to interpret the ordinance,
Yeah.
and they have to interpret the standards and make defensible decisions. Otherwise, everything gets appealed, and then it
Sure.
becomes just a kind of a political
Yeah.
game.
My own opinion, the West Elm Hotel is rather attractive. I kind of like that design. I prefer that design to the other one, just my own thing. But it's in today's paper. You be the judge
There
for
you go.
yourself.
I'm remembering your disclaimer at the beginning.
That's right. That's right. Oh yeah, it's rarely the guest that they're worried about. They're more worried about what I'm going to say. You know, we're not too worried that the guest is going to get out of line. But okay, now you had to kind of jump around a bit. And by the way, feel free to introduce whatever topic at whatever time you want to, Daniel. We just kind of, as you know, kind of like to have a rather loose conversation about various things when we do the show here. But you had an interesting opinion piece in the paper, I guess a week ago Sunday. Don't be dense about city density. Again, as you mentioned in the piece, actually, that density is, quote, today's buzzword in planning and development, and it's good, mostly. And you make that point, and as you rightly point out, I mean, the downtown of any city, I mean, it's going to be dense. That's the whole point. You can't, it's the center of activity, certainly in business activity, and certainly in Savannah, lots also of residential too. So that's where the density of any area is just naturally going to be. But talk a little bit about, you also make the point here in the piece, however, that there are elements on the, out from the very, very heart of the city, but not far, that are certainly ripe and good areas to put in additional businesses and different residences and could build up more than they are. Tell us a little bit about this piece you wrote and where you're coming from on that.
Sure. Downtown works well because it's mixed use.
Right.
And mixed use areas in particular can absorb a little more density because you have residential and commercial and just about everything kind of works. And so you can go up a little bit and you can add density. And I think that's healthy. And then you get into areas like Victorian District, which is really traditionally residential.
Right.
So I think you'd want to be careful about trying to impose too much density in the Victorian District. But then you get into what I call Thomas Square, which is mid-city and
Starland District
and that area.
There,
Again, we're back to some more mixed use, and I think that's with the lot sizes and the types of buildings and its development pattern, I think, could absorb a bit more density. And I think that's an area that wants it and needs it. I think it would help, the economy of that area. And likewise on Montgomery and MLK,
right.
As you're going west towards Kyle or Brownville, I think those areas can absorb it better and make use of it. And that would relieve some of the pressure that's on downtown because now it's anybody with enough money and a decent idea. Well, they come downtown and it's just about a guaranteed victory. But these other areas, they might present some more challenges, but I think with some creativity and some encouragement and perhaps some assistance, you can get good projects in these areas and kind of continue or jumpstart revitalization there. Right.
Well, what can we can't get too deep in the woods, and neither one of us are in the city government per se and all that. So, but what can there are some measures that the city could do, I think, to encourage that sort of thing. I guess some tax breaks. What sorts of things might you just think that.
Yeah, well, they can start by adopting NUZO. That's the new zoning ordinance, which has
right.
only been in the works for about 25 years. And it's been just chewed on to death. So I do think, it really all starts and ends with zoning.
Yeah,
you have to be.
Right.
You can't imagine everything, and it's never perfect. But at some point, you got to get off the sidelines and get in the game.
No kidding.
And the sort of Byzantine process that we currently have and code is just clearly not working.
Yeah.
So that's something, and that's virtually free. Just adopt the thing.
It's already been
going,
done and studied and created. So yeah.
But otherwise, I think certain incentives, whether they're tax incentives or just trying to help the permitting process along and make sure that's efficient, things like that. Just give developers predictability. That's really all they ask for. They just don't want to feel like they're taking 2 steps up and 1 step back.
Right, and that they're spending money that they're going to then turn out to be wasted because it.
Right. It is an expensive and risky venture. So that's why actually downtown works, is because there are very clear guidelines. There is predictability. And even though it takes a couple of times maybe to get through Historic District Board of Review.
But that's mostly tweak kind of things.
Exactly. And so that's why it works. You get into other areas and it's much more unknown.
Right.
And so that is that unknown that makes people reluctant to invest.
All right, Daniel, what can you and I do to get the zoning thing you're talking about?
Well, I think
or the people who are listening, what can we do? Let's put some pressure on somebody and get this thing done.
Well, get it through MPC, and by that I mean the commission itself, and then over to City Council.
Planning Commission.
Yeah, and I think City Council is taking it up fairly soon.
Okay, that's
sometimes
encouraging.
It gets there and then goes away and then comes back. But I think
clearly,
I think it has traction, and I think it'll go forward. But I think calling your alderman and reminding them that NUZO is on the horizon. So this time, catch it and use it. Don't fumble it.
That is a good point. Your aldermen out there, folks. They are your representatives, and don't hesitate to contact them and let them know what you think is important and certain things that you think need to be addressed. That's kind of their job. So don't hesitate to do that. Of course, here in the Landmark District, Bill Durrance is the guy, and I've had the pleasure of having Bill on one time, and he's coming back on here in the next couple of weeks, so we'll have some more discussion about that. So yeah, that's the thing. You got to get your voice out there. Now, is anything regarding the big, what is it, Spring Forward, the big plan, the major, is it Savannah Forward? Savannah Forward.
Yes.
Is anything in there been, tried to incorporate what we're talking about here in zoning specifically, or not really?
I just have to confess I'm not as well versed on that as I should be.
Well, it's a big sprawling thing.
Well, but they've had good opportunities or afforded good opportunities to comment. But actually, coincidentally, Historic Savannah Foundation was going through its strategic planning almost at the same time, and so we were really focused on that.
Sure.
I think that a lot of Savannah Forward rests on 2 things, both important. I think one is taking a longer view. It's not taking a short view, but a longer view.
Right, sure.
And the other thing is, I think this is an opportunity for the city manager, Rob Hernandez, to have his fingerprints on this plan. So that's really important. So we'll see how that shakes out.
Yeah.
But I think those 2 things are probably the most notable things about the plan.
Yeah, and I myself, I've been impressed in a general sense with him. Not that I know all of the ins and outs of the whole process, but he seems like a kind of guy who's coming in and means to get things done, and because it's gonna, it always comes down to follow through. I mean, it's just like we're talking about the Newso thing. I mean, because there's been, Lord knows, there've been plenty of plans going that have been created in years and decades past that never seem to really be implemented. Certainly not fully, if at all. So.
Well, I think he is a good manager, just from what I've seen.
Yeah.
I mean, the title is apt for him, and I think what he's getting, and we have to both be patient, but also help him along a little bit, is sensitivity to Savannah, because it is a unique place, and this is not South Florida, and I think a sensitivity to our historic districts and our pedestrian way of life and things like that. Not just downtown, but in other areas as well. I think that he's getting that sensitivity, but I think part of that is our responsibility to help him understand that. I'll
tell you what, boy. If your point is well taken. So we will let that go there, I suppose.
Disclaimer, Wayne. Disclaimer.
Disclaimer. That's right.
I'll be your conscience.
No. It'll be. I want to put a little governor on my particular mouth here occasionally. But anyway, So some good opportunity with that, I think. In terms of moving forward, there's been a lot of planning. There has been a lot of public input on it, I think, which is a very good thing. I mean, even if sometimes some of what is expressed during those meetings, in my experience, is not necessarily that pertinent, I guess I'll say, to the process, really, but still. It's always good if you've got citizens involved, residents just involved, and them being aware of it, the people in charge, so to speak, listening to what they have to say and including that in their deliberations. That's always a good thing. So,
well, I know there's a knock that Savannah is over-planned and under-implemented, and that we like to spend money and time on plans. But and there is some truth to that. But I do think that the public engagement process here in this city is pretty good. I think it's better than most places, and that gets reflected in through committees and commissions and other ways that influence what happens in Savannah. So all those city boards and authorities and things like that are good ways for the public to get involved, in addition to just sounding off through op-eds and talking to your alderman. But stepping up and actually sitting at the table and doing some work is important. But I think by and large we do pretty well at that.
Yeah. I think so as well. Okay, we are just about already, I can't believe this, at the halfway point, essentially. And so we're going to take a very brief break, and we won't be gone long. We'll get into some other topics. We might talk a little bit, if you have anything you want to say about the whole issue of the short-term vacation rentals. We might touch on that, and then anything else that you feel inclined to talk about. So more good conversation with Daniel Carey, President and CEO of Historic Savannah Foundation. But we're going to take just a short break, and we will be back. Okay, and we are back. I want you to know you are listening to WRUULP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul.
This portion of WRUULP Savannah Soundings programming is made possible by a grant from Sentient Bean, offering fair trade coffee, vegan and vegetarian food, and breakfast all day. Located at 13 East Park Avenue, across the street from the tennis courts at Forsyth Park. Our menu and special events listings can be found at sentientbean.com.
All right, and okay, we'll continue our discussion here on Savannah Lexicon with Daniel Carey, President, CEO, Historic Savannah Foundation. And Daniel, I know that a big part of what HSF does is sort of you have a revolving fund, and you to sort of address certain areas that are kind of the most blighted and have serious economic issues and whatnot. And you mentioned, I think, the Kyler-Brownsville section, and you guys are trying to do something in that area. Talk a little bit about that, if you would.
Yeah, we're just building on the record that we started downtown.
Mm-hmm.
When we started the revolving fund in 1960, formally, we started saving endangered, blighted historic buildings in downtown. And we got a foothold here, and then others followed suit. So we kind of moved into the Victorian district and started working there. And then we moved into Thomas Square Streetcar in that area, and Kyler-Brownville, and East Side. Most of our work has been here in the Landmark District and Victorian District, but we're like missionaries. So we're always out on the leading edge and trying to convert other neighborhoods. And so, yes, we have a real interest in Kyler-Brownville because we think that's an important historic neighborhood that's hanging in the balance. This is a working class African-American neighborhood, always has been, has good building stock, really has a strong sense of neighborhoodness, if you will, but is suffering from a lot of crime and a lot of disinvestment. And we can't just turn our backs to it because it's difficult. We have to kind of double down. And yet we could probably devote our entire revolving fund and everything we do to Kyler-Brownville, and it would still be hard to see an obvious result from that.
Right.
Which, again, doesn't mean we shouldn't, give it everything we have, but it's going to take many hands to make that work. And this is one where the city really does need to take a leadership role. And, this precinct station that's going up along MLK there that has been in the news regarding a design and a redesign.
It's design, another design issue.
But it precipitated the removal of Meldrum Row, half of Meldrum Row, which was a historic row of buildings that was built by Judge Peter Meldrum for affordable housing. So that was sort of bitterly ironic, I will have to say.
Yeah.
But we understood the need for crime prevention and crime control and a greater police presence. So, we kind of played ball with the city on that, but I would like them to hasten what they're doing over there so we can find out if we made the right decision or not. I mean, police presence in Kyler-Brownville is going to help, but I want to make sure they're not just treating the symptoms as opposed to going to the root of the problem. And really, the root of the problem is employment and economic disadvantagedness and
education.
Education. So we got to get in there and do all that. So how does that begin? Well, it all begins at home, and we're advancing affordable housing and workforce housing along with Habitat for Humanity and other groups. So
good.
It's hard, but meanwhile, there's plenty of blight and plenty of demolition going on over there.
Yeah. I'll tell you, it is a difficult issue in some of the worst areas. I mean, my goodness, because it really does have to be an all-encompassing approach. I mean, because it all feeds on itself. And boy, it's not easy, as you say.
Right.
But at any rate, you do what you can.
But the model, right? What we need to remember is downtown looked like Kyle or Brownville 50 years ago.
Yeah,
it was vacant and blighted and crime-ridden, and no one was coming here.
True.
It worked here, and it worked in the Victorian district. And I'm not saying that Historic Savannah Foundation or our revolving fund is the silver bullet. It is not.
Yeah,
but it can show the way.
Right.
And the way in this city is using what you have, and that's historic building stock, and that's your trump card. So play that.
Good point. Excellent point. You guys do good work. You do good work. I'm so happy that Historic Savannah Foundation is here and has been here and doing this stuff for so long, because I'll tell you what, as you say, it's been a big part of the process that has turned this city around, going back decades, and continues to go forward. So I hope everybody understands that and really appreciates it. And I got to be honest with you, Daniel, I forgot you told me, because I was originally planning to have you on this time of year because of your fundraiser, and y'all changed the date, didn't you? Didn't you have something in the spring around?
Our preservation festival, which we do in May, and it was over a couple of weekends, but only one component of that, our block party, got rained out, and so we pushed it back a couple of weeks.
Okay.
We had that at Gary Lumber.
Okay.
And it was a good day nonetheless, even though it was just a little behind schedule.
Okay, so it went well. So I was on the wrong schedule in the first place. I thought you guys had totally...
Well, we have a fall.
You do have a fall fundraiser.
That's our gala.
Okay, that's the big gala.
That is our big fundraiser.
All right. Well, I may try and get you back.
Well,
for that, we'll see.
We should get Megan Lowe in.
Well, Megan Lowe, whoever you want, that's fine. But I'd love, because I'd love to give you, the organization as much as I can at that time, because, the fundraising efforts are important for sure. Okay, let's talk a little bit about another hot button issue here in the city of Savannah, which is the whole short-term vacation rental question. And lots of give and take on that. A lot of folks are not happy about it, think it creates problems sometimes, and that a lot of times it's out of city, maybe out of state ownership, and others. I know I've had a number of neighborhood association folks on recently, and they're talking about, it's a different thing if you have a homeowner who wants to occasionally lease out a carriage house or a room in their house or whatever it may be. That's really shouldn't be even called a short-term vacation rental. Maybe use different lingo, whatever it is. But I don't know. What are your thoughts, kind of on that scenario in general?
Well, any subject or issue that generates this much interest that seems to be evenly divided must be complicated, and this is. And that again, that's not to dismiss it, saying, well, it's too hard to figure out. But it does mean that there are at least two viable viewpoints on this, and we appreciate that, because I think the truth is, to a degree, the revenues generated from short-term vacation rentals do help rehabilitate and steward historic properties. It is difficult to bear the cost of rehabbing and maintaining historic buildings.
Yeah.
But this is a city of residents, and it's a city of neighborhoods and wards, our square system that Oglethorpe laid out. And the beauty of that is we know each other, and we look out for each other, and we look after each other. And maintaining that residential quotient is really important if you want to have a viable city, a 360-degree city, and people that are here 24/7, 365. I just think that's really important, because they're the ones that truly care and take care of their properties, because it's their primary investment. So again, it comes down to balance, and it comes down to reasonable regulations, which I was pleased that City Council adopted those reasonable regulations that were proposed last week. I would have liked to see an additional stronger component for owner occupancy, because I think having the owner on site is the best way to keep things under control and do the best job of maintaining the property and neighborhood relations. That would have been terrific. But there was some give and take, and the and the interest for short-term vacation rentals gave too. They accepted the 20% cap down from their 35%, and I think that was significant. The part that was missing, or the other side of the equation, as I like to say, that we didn't get, was just a very brief moratorium, long enough to get all of these new regs ready and implemented, because that's another, 6 weeks or so. And that died for lack of a second. And what I'm concerned about there is, the rush to get your permit under the door or over the transom, however. Because we experienced that when there was just talk of a moratorium the first time around, then the city was flooded with applications, and that was an oversight, to be honest, on the part of city council. They should have been better prepared to address the moratorium question. It didn't necessarily need to be 90 days or 120 days, whatever. It could have been briefer, shorter period, but I think important nonetheless.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
Urban living.
Our building is shaking, folks. Yeah, I agree with you, and I don't quite understand, the necessities in some cases that city council has, that we've got to do this now. We can't just kind of stop and take a breather. Sometimes it's a good thing to stop and take a breather. I'll note that this is a few months back, maybe these numbers, but I'm sure they're about correct. 748 certified vacation rentals in the city, 78% in the historic district, 20% in the Victorian district. So that's 98% right there. The vast majority in the historic district, as opposed to the not including the Victorian district in the way that they're putting this.
And yet other areas and neighborhoods
would love it.
Want them, and again, back to that density thing, can absorb them. Kyler Brownville is one that could really use vacation rentals.
Sure.
And there have been some decent proposals coming out, but they're not allowed. And that's a shame, because that's the kind of investment that you want in a neighborhood to get it going. Although they did look at, they're studying a blight certificate, which would
that sounds ominous, but it's a good thing. It's a good thing. But
they're certified blighted. It would incentivize and make easier for a finite period of time the rehab and adaptive use of blighted buildings for short-term vacation rentals to kind of kickstart something. And that's good. So I think over the next 60, 90 days, we'll be looking at that. And
that sounds like a no-brainer to me. I mean, these things are never as simple as they sound, but still that sounds like a no-brainer. I mean, come on. Yes, absolutely. That's a good idea. And you're right. There are, certainly several areas of town that would love to get, even Thomas Square and Starland, area, and other areas too, particularly as you're saying, Kyler Brownsville, for which it could mean so much. That seems to me something that we ought to try to make happen. That would be good. All right. I have got to move into the absolute final stage, and I've got some announcements to make myself and all that sort of thing. But let me just give you a last shot here. If there's anything that you just kind of want to say before you go, Daniel. Well, we've talked about a lot, and this has been a very good discussion. I'm so happy to have you. You're always a good guest to have, and knowledgeable about what's going on, and I do appreciate you coming on. What any last final thoughts you want to throw out there?
Well, I like being on the Power Hour, Wayne, so thank you for having me back.
Good. But we're talking, by the way, I'm thinking that I've had only about 3 repeat guests, you now being one as well, and there is talk of a special engraved coffee cup or something to recognize those who are actually repeat guests. So you're in the running on that, Daniel.
Thank you. I'll put that next to my WKRP coffee mug.
Yeah, there you go. All right, I interrupted you.
That's
Go ahead.
all right. No, what I was going to say is that, crime aside, and we're not setting it aside, but I'm saying it is easy to be completely consumed with crime as the issue here in this city. And it is something to be reckoned with, no doubt.
For sure.
But I would say that I'm bullish on Savannah, that I think the leadership is doing a really good job. I think that we're moving in the right direction. We're asking the right questions. I think we're trying to find the right answers. And I'm optimistic about the way things are going right now. And I know that issue is very real, and we've got to come together as a community on that. That is not pointing fingers, and it's not letting somebody else just take care of it. We all have to chip in on this. But
indeed.
But in general, I'm very optimistic, and I think our direction is good, and I think our best days are ahead of us.
Nice. That's good to hear, because we haven't been hearing that much lately, and I agree with you. And you, I think, are someone well positioned to have a good, real sense of that. So that's good to hear an encouraging word. All right, folks, we are going to break away, and again, just a brief breakaway. Don't go anywhere. I've got some announcements to make and all that sort of stuff. So hang with us just a little bit more. And thanks again, Daniel, for coming in. Okay, I am back. Savannah Lexicon is back. So glad. I always love to have Daniel Carey in here. He is quite knowledgeable about stuff going into Savannah and the importance of our historical heritage and our historical buildings and communication building and all that good stuff. So great pleasure to have him. I will let you know now about upcoming guests. And here's the thing. I don't know who my guest is going to be next Tuesday. That is yet to be confirmed. So mystery guest for Tuesday, which could be exciting. You just never know who might end up on Savannah Lexicon on Tuesday's show. But when I do find out, I will put it on Facebook and we'll put it out on WRUU.org. And there is a Facebook page, by the way, so that's the first thing. And check that out. I'd love to hear from you and good, bad, or indifferent, what you might have to say about the program. So check that out on Facebook. Also, again, on WRUU.org, we will have some indication as I do confirm the guests for next Tuesday. I can tell you a week from today, next Thursday, I'll have Steve Willis, President, Board of Directors of Center for a Sustainable Coast, and we will talk about the importance of protecting the coastal Georgia area. That's an organization actually based in Brunswick, but Steve Willis is here in Savannah, and we'll be talking with him. Set up for the following week on Tuesday, Michael Tucker, Executive Director of WorkSource Coastal. Talk a little bit about jobs, the importance of jobs, and efforts to generate more jobs and get good employees and get some additional work scenarios here in the city. And then the Thursday, 2 weeks from now, Alderman Bill Durrance will be back here in the studio with me, and he is, of course, the alderman for the downtown historic district, essentially, to put it over simply. Always good to speak with him. He too is certainly someone who is very much on the pulse of what's going on in the city and what we're trying to accomplish, and what city council is working on, and all of that kind of stuff. So very much looking forward on 7/27 to have Alderman Bill Durrance in here. So that's going on. All right, want to let you know about some other things excuse me, that are happening. Number one, it's exciting. This is exciting. Tonight, 6 to 9 p.m., the LGBT Center grand opening. That's nice. That's good. That's at 1515 Bull Street. And, boy, it's going to be hosted by First City Network, Georgia AIDS Coalition, Savannah Pride, Savannah Standout Youth, Transgender Education and Empowerment, and Georgia Equality. Public is welcome. So this is great. So happy that the center is going to get firmly established and have a grand opening here this evening. Also, what else is there going on? I will tell you that on Saturday, there is Pause for a Cause, a worthwhile endeavor, at Foundry Coffee Pub, 1313 Habersham Street. It is a fundraiser that will benefit One Love Animal Rescue. It's going to be live music, bake sale. There'll be a live auction of some kind going on, and other kinds of things as well. So that is another very good activity coming up here in the very near future. What else we got? What else is there going on? There's so much going on in this city all the time. It's really nice. There are some interesting volunteer opportunities. There is Pink Hair Warriors training. Yep. That may still be going on. Check into that. Check into that with Coleman Coastal Georgia. I'm not sure if that's passed already or not. Also, the Girl Scouts of Historic Georgia are still looking, I'm assuming, for volunteers for Quest Fest. And that is the big Girl Scout festival that is actually starting today, I believe. Yeah, it's starting today through Sunday. Expecting more than 1,000 scouts from more than 20 states to be right here in the historic home of Girl Scouting. So still looking for volunteers there. Volunteers needed to clean up a privately owned veterans cemetery located on Hunter Army Airfield. More information, Geneva Garza, 512-470-4439. So that is a worthwhile endeavor there as well. And there's also Coleman, we were talking about Coleman Coastal Georgia, Susan G. Coleman Coastal Georgia. They are looking for volunteer to train from noon to 2 p.m. July 18th. So that's going to, they're looking for volunteers to help with outreach, fundraising, administrative stuff. Certainly a worthwhile organization. Contact Julie Schwartz, 232-2535. That's the Susan G. Komen, Coastal Georgia, looking for some volunteers there. Also, the Ralph Mark Gilbert Civil Rights Museum, looking for volunteers. They always appreciate some volunteers. 231-8900, looking for volunteers there. Let's see, what other kinds of stuff might we have? Yeah, there's also a new, I love this, the new races to benefit Ogeechee River Keeper. There's the Moon River Race and the Butterbean Beach Race. How can you not love anything named Butterbean Beach? So that is going to take place July 22nd, so a little bit of time on this. The Butterbean Beach Race is apparently a 1-mile race, so not too terrible there. The Moon River Race is a 4-mile race, and that's going to debut. This will be the very first one, July 22nd, raise money for Ogeechee Riverkeeper, another very laudable organization here in Savannah. And so check that out. I don't know right off, to be honest with you, their webpage address, but you certainly can find it. It's OgeecheeRiverkeeper.org. Well, of course it is. So OgeecheeRiverkeeper.org there for that race to raise funds for the organization. All right. Now tomorrow, July 14th, 7:30 p.m., free organ concert. I mean, hey, can't argue with free. This is at Messiah Lutheran Church, 1 West Ridge Road. Organist Greg Zelig, prize-winning organist, will give a free concert. Information 598-1188. 598-1188. And let's see, what else might be going on? Well, that's enough. My goodness, there's always so much going on in this city. So just check it out and make sure what you can find. So this is WRUULP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul. This is Wayne Waters. Thank you so much for listening to Savannah Lexicon today. I'll be here next Tuesday and Thursday. Tuesday, 7 o'clock for Savannah Rising, some good Americana music. And 8 to 9, Savannah Lexicon. So do tune in next week. I appreciate you listening this week. Have a good day.